histogram. It's going to be our guide and it might become your favourite graph as we get out of auto. This is a histogram. A very unassuming little graph, but it's got the power to really help you take better photos. What even is it? It's a graph showing you how bright your pixels are, and that's going to be important when we're learning about how to expose our photos correctly using the exposure triangle, aperture, shutter speed, ISO. We've already done aperture. We'll be getting onto the other two in the very next videos. The peaks are the number of pixels, and along the bottom is the relative brightness of those pixels. If you're at either end of the spectrum, it's going to be the shadows, the highlights, and the midtones. As you look from left to right, you're going from pure black pixels to pure white pixels. Everything in between will have data on different color values, different light intensities. You don't want to be having spikes either at the pure black or the pure white end. If you venture into the world of video, you'll encounter many different types of histogram, but for now we're keeping the dial focused right in on photography. Great. But why is this readout so important to me? What is it going to do to help me take better photos? It's going to be your check. It's going to be your guide that you're not blowing out highlights and you're not crushing shadows. Because that's one of the biggest frustrations when you first switch out of auto mode, is getting that exposure right. Especially if you're in the woods or somewhere where there's changeable lighting conditions, you're going to have to be always aware of what's going on. Now that can be quite difficult if you're looking at an LCD monitor at the back of your camera, but the histogram, it never lies. It's telling you, these are your number of pixels, this is how it's exposed. The histogram for me is essential in letting me know that I've dialed in the correct settings. And it's a constant check throughout whenever I'm shooting, no matter where it is, that I've got the settings nailed. Make sure most of the distribution isn't near the extremes if you can help it. That's exactly what auto mode is doing for you. It is changing the ISO, the aperture, the shutter speed, trying to get a nice even distribution on that histogram. It's your best weapon to ensure that you've exposed your photos correctly, especially as we're just getting out of auto and venturing into the manual mode for the very first time. And that's why it's the second entry in this series. There will be times as we continue our photography journey long after we've got out of auto where we're going to ignore a lot of crushed shadows and blown highlights, especially if we're dealing with conditions where we know we're exposing the subject correctly and it's just the pixels around it that's given us the pretty wacky histogram. That's it. That was number 2. Join us for number 3, where we're going to have a need for speed, or more specifically, a need for shutter speed. Thanks for watching.